The cameras flashed, each burst of light feeling like a physical blow. My brother, Ethan, sat a few feet away, a smug, satisfied smirk plastered across his face. It was the kind of look that said, "I win," before the final card was even played. The air in the courtroom was thick with anticipation, the scent of expensive cologne mixing with the undercurrent of fear radiating from me. They thought this was the end of Olivia, the culmination of their carefully orchestrated plan. But they were wrong. This was just the beginning. If you truly love your sister, subscribe now. The roots of this nightmare ran deep, twisting through the foundations of our family. For generations, the Harding name had been synonymous with success, with power, with an almost untouchable level of wealth. Our grandfather had built an empire from nothing, a sprawling network of businesses that spanned continents. He instilled in us a ruthless drive, a relentless pursuit of victory at any cost. Ethan and I were raised in his shadow, constantly competing for his approval, for a larger slice of the pie. Growing up, it felt like everything was a zero-sum game. If I won, he lost, and vice versa. This rivalry, initially childish and petty, had festered over the years, morphing into something far more sinister. I excelled in business, launching several successful ventures that rivaled and in some cases surpassed Ethan's accomplishments. My success became a threat, a glaring reminder of his own perceived inadequacies. Instead of celebrating my achievements, he seethed with resentment, his envy slowly poisoning our relationship. The breaking point came with my latest project, a tech startup that had quickly gained traction, attracting significant investment and poised to revolutionize the industry. It was a clear indication of my capabilities, and I watched his mask of civility crumble. The polite smiles became strained, the friendly banter laced with venom. He saw my success as a direct assault on his position, a challenge to his dominance. That's when the whisper started, the subtle insinuations about my competence, the backhanded compliments that stung more than outright insults. He began to undermine my efforts, spreading rumors among our family and associates, attempting to sabotage my deals. But I refused to be intimidated. I doubled down, working harder than ever to prove him wrong, to show him that his petty attempts at sabotage would not succeed. I should have seen the avalanche coming. I was too focused on the business to notice the meticulousness in his plotting.
The day the lawsuit landed on my desk, declaring me bankrupt, I was stunned. The accusation was a complete fabrication, a web of lies spun by Ethan, with the help of a high-powered lawyer, designed to publicly humiliate and financially cripple me. They claimed I had mismanaged funds, engaged in fraudulent activities, and driven my company into the ground. The evidence was fabricated, the witnesses coerced, the entire case built on a foundation of deceit. I knew immediately that Ethan was behind it. The timing was too perfect, the precision too calculated. It was a carefully orchestrated attack, designed to destroy everything I had worked for. Sitting in that courtroom, surrounded by the vultures of the press, I felt a wave of despair wash over me. My reputation, my career, my entire future was hanging in the balance. Ethan sat there, radiating smug superiority, confident that he had finally won. I glanced at him, trying to decipher the depths of his malice. He caught my gaze and leaned in, his voice a low, venomous whisper. "It's over, Olivia," he hissed. "You're finished." That's when I felt something inside me change. The fear and despair began to recede, replaced by a cold, burning rage. He wanted to see me broken, defeated, stripped of everything I held dear. But he underestimated my resolve, my willingness to fight back. I would not let him win. I would not let him destroy me. The person I trusted most was one of them. The gavel slammed down, the sound echoing through the courtroom like a death knell. The judge's words blurred together, legal jargon masking the devastating truth. I was found liable, bankrupt, ruined. As I stumbled out of the courthouse, the throng of reporters descended upon me, their cameras flashing, their questions cutting like knives. I pushed my way through the crowd, desperate to escape the suffocating atmosphere, the judgmental stares. The world I had carefully built, the life I had meticulously crafted, was crumbling around me, reduced to ashes by Ethan's calculated treachery. My phone vibrated incessantly with calls from investors, clients, and associates, each one demanding answers, each one severing ties. The silence that followed was deafening, a stark reminder of my isolation. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced, replaying the events of the day, searching for a way out, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. Every scenario ended the same, with me defeated, humiliated, and penniless. The weight of the injustice was crushing. The knowledge that Ethan had orchestrated this entire charade, fueled by his insatiable envy, made it all the more unbearable. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, financial assessments, and desperate attempts to salvage what was left of my company. My lawyers, initially confident, grew increasingly pessimistic as they delved deeper into the case. Ethan had covered his tracks meticulously, ensuring that every piece of evidence pointed squarely at me. The fabricated documents, the coerced witnesses, the carefully planted rumors, it was a masterpiece of deception, designed to leave no room for doubt. I tried to fight back, gathering evidence to prove my innocence, to expose Ethan's lies, but every avenue seemed to lead to a dead end. The system, it seemed, was rigged against me, the scales of justice tilted in favor of wealth and power. The stress began to take its toll. I lost weight, my hair thinned, and dark circles formed under my eyes. I became a shadow of my former self, consumed by the relentless battle to clear my name. Even my closest friends began to distance themselves, afraid of being tainted by the scandal. The isolation was suffocating. Desperate, I reached out to my family, hoping for support, for understanding, but found only cold indifference. My parents, always more concerned with appearances than with truth, sided with Ethan, eager to avoid any further embarrassment. They saw me as a liability, a stain on the family name, and urged me to accept my fate, to quietly disappear and let the scandal fade away. Their betrayal cut deeper than any legal setback, a painful reminder that even those closest to me were willing to abandon me in my time of need. Only one person remained steadfast. My longtime friend, Sarah. She believed in me, she knew my character, and she refused to let me give up. She spent countless hours poring over documents, making calls, and offering unwavering emotional support. Her friendship was a lifeline, the only thing that kept me from completely losing hope. Together, we worked tirelessly, searching for any loophole, any weakness in Ethan's carefully constructed facade. But the more we dug, the more we realized the extent of his planning, the depth of his deception. He had anticipated every move, covered every angle, leaving us with virtually no chance of success. As the legal bills mounted and my assets dwindled, I was forced to sell my house, my car, everything I owned. I moved into a small apartment, stripped of all the trappings of my former life. The humiliation was complete. Ethan had taken everything from me. My career, my reputation, my financial security, and my family. He had reduced me to nothing. But even in my darkest hour, a spark of defiance remained. I refused to let him break my spirit. I would not become a victim. I would find a way to fight back, to expose his lies, and to reclaim my life. The plan had begun. One evening, Sarah and I were poring over financial records, the dim light of her apartment illuminating the stacks of documents that had become our lives. Frustration mounting, I ran my hand roughly through my hair. "There has to be something we are missing," I exclaimed, fatigue and anger seeping into my voice. Sarah calmly pushed a glass of water toward me. "We will find it, Olivia. We just need to keep looking. He's not perfect." The memory replayed in my mind, the moment Ethan leaned in, his voice dripping with malice. "It's over, Olivia. You're finished." That's when I knew what to do. He thought he had silenced me, crushed me beneath his heel. But he was wrong. I would use his arrogance against him. I would let him believe he had won, while I quietly gathered the evidence I needed to expose his treachery. I started documenting everything, every conversation, every interaction, every piece of evidence I could find. I knew it was a long shot, but it was the only chance I had. I acted the part of the defeated woman, attending meetings with a bowed head, offering no resistance to his demands. I let him gloat, let him revel in his victory, all the while secretly recording his every word. I smiled. I acted broken, but I was recording everything. The silence in the small apartment was deafening, broken only by the rhythmic tick of a cheap clock on the wall. Each tick was a hammer blow, driving home the reality of my situation. The furniture was sparse, secondhand, a far cry from the elegant decor of my former home.
Dust motes danced in the weak sunlight filtering through the grimy window, illuminating the emptiness that had become my life. I stared at my reflection in the darkened screen of my phone, a ghost of the woman I used to be. Hollow eyes, gaunt cheeks, a haunted expression that mirrored the turmoil within. I barely recognized myself. I felt like I was suffocating, the walls closing in on me, the weight of Ethan's betrayal pressing down on my chest. Every breath was a struggle, every thought a reminder of my failure. He had succeeded. He had stripped me bare, leaving me with nothing but the clothes on my back and the burning desire for revenge. I sank to the floor, the cold tile seeping into my bones. The tears came then, a torrent of grief and anger and despair. I wept for the life I had lost, for the dreams that had been shattered, for the family that had abandoned me. I wept until I had nothing left, until I was empty, numb. The darkness threatened to consume me, to swallow me whole, to drag me down into the abyss.
As the sobs subsided, a strange calm descended. I lay there on the floor, staring at the ceiling, my mind blank. The exhaustion was overwhelming, but beneath the surface, something was stirring. A flicker of defiance, a spark of resolve. I closed my eyes, and I saw Ethan's face, his smug smile, his eyes filled with malice. The image fueled a new emotion, a cold, burning rage that eclipsed all others. He thought he had broken me, that I would simply fade away, defeated and forgotten. But he didn't know me. He didn't know the depths of my resilience, the strength that lay dormant within me. I would not let him win. I would not let him destroy me. I would rise from the ashes, stronger and more determined than ever before. I sat up, my body aching, my head throbbing. I went into the tiny bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I saw a different woman staring back. A woman hardened by adversity, a woman forged in the fires of betrayal, a woman with a singular focus: revenge. The old Olivia was gone. In her place stood someone colder, harder, more calculating, someone who would stop at nothing to achieve her goals. I would use every ounce of my intelligence, every connection I had left, every resource at my disposal to expose Ethan's lies and reclaim my life. The plan had evolved. It was no longer just about clearing my name. It was about making him pay. The first step was to gather evidence, to meticulously document every instance of Ethan's treachery. I spent hours poring over financial records, legal documents, and emails, searching for any inconsistencies, any slip-ups that could expose his deception. I contacted former employees, business associates, anyone who might have information about Ethan's activities. Most were afraid to talk, intimidated by his power and influence, but a few, motivated by their own grievances, were willing to share what they knew. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to piece together the puzzle, uncovering a web of lies, deceit, and corruption that extended far beyond my own case. Ethan's seemingly untouchable image began to crack, revealing the darkness that lurked beneath. As I delved deeper, I discovered that my situation was not unique. He had a history of sabotaging rivals, manipulating markets, and using his wealth and power to crush anyone who stood in his way. I found others he had ruined, people whose lives he had shattered with his ruthless ambition. Their stories fueled my determination. Their experiences validated my own. I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't alone. I realized that taking down Ethan was not just about personal revenge. It was about protecting others from his destructive behavior. It became a mission. I started keeping detailed notes, recording every conversation, every meeting, every piece of information I gathered. I knew that Ethan would stop at nothing to protect himself, and I had to be prepared for anything. I purchased a small, discreet recording device and started wearing it everywhere, capturing every interaction with him and his associates. I knew it was risky, but the potential reward was worth it. Their biggest weakness? They thought they were untouchable. I smiled. I played their game, but I was recording. The small device, hidden in my purse, was my lifeline, capturing every venomous word, every incriminating statement. I met with Ethan regularly, feigning despair and defeat, allowing him to bask in his perceived victory.
Each meeting was a performance, a carefully crafted charade designed to lull him into a false sense of security. I would sit across from him, my head bowed, my voice barely a whisper, as he detailed his plans for my company, for my life. He reveled in the details, savoring my humiliation, never suspecting that his every word was being recorded, meticulously documented. There were close calls, moments when I thought he might suspect something, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Once, as I reached for my purse, the recording device shifted, making a slight noise. Ethan paused, his gaze narrowing. "What was that?" he asked, his voice sharp. My heart leaped into my throat. I forced a weak smile. "Just my keys," I said, fumbling in my purse. "I'm so scatterbrained these days." He watched me for a moment longer, his eyes scrutinizing my every move, before finally dismissing it. I breathed a sigh of relief, my hands shaking, and I knew I had to be even more careful. Sarah was my rock through all of this. She helped me analyze the recordings, transcribing them, highlighting the key evidence, the moments where Ethan implicated himself in the fraudulent activities. She also helped me research the legal ramifications, consulting with her contacts in the legal field to determine the best course of action. We discovered that Ethan's lawyer, the one who had orchestrated the lawsuit against me, had a history of ethical violations, a series of complaints filed against him for misconduct and shady dealings. This was a crucial piece of information, a potential crack in Ethan's armor. We knew that if we could expose the lawyer's unethical behavior, it would undermine the entire case against me. "We need to find concrete proof," Sarah said one evening, as we sat hunched over her laptop, "something that directly links him to Ethan's scheme." I nodded. "I've been digging into his past, trying to find any dirt I can. There has to be something there." It was a slow, painstaking process, sifting through years of legal documents, court records, and news articles, but we were determined to find the evidence we needed. The anticipation was building with each passing day, the knowledge that we were getting closer to exposing Ethan's lies, to reclaiming my life. I started having vivid dreams, imagining the moment when I would confront him, when I would watch his smug expression crumble as the truth was revealed. These dreams fueled my determination, giving me the strength to keep going, even when I felt like giving up. One day, while researching the lawyer's past cases, Sarah stumbled upon a small article in an obscure legal journal. It mentioned a case where the lawyer had been accused of tampering with evidence, of manipulating witnesses to provide false testimony. The case had been dismissed due to lack of evidence, but the article hinted at a possible cover-up, suggesting that the lawyer had used his connections to bury the allegations. This was exactly what we were looking for. We tracked down the original plaintiff in the case, a woman named Emily Carter, who had been fighting a long and difficult battle against the lawyer and his powerful clients. Emily was initially hesitant to talk, afraid of the repercussions, but after Sarah explained my situation and assured her that we were not trying to exploit her, she agreed to meet with us. Emily shared her story, detailing the lawyer's unethical tactics, the intimidation, the coercion, the blatant disregard for the truth. She provided us with documents, emails, and recordings that supported her claims, evidence that had been suppressed during the original case. This was a goldmine. We now had concrete proof of the lawyer's misconduct, evidence that could potentially unravel the entire case against me. I felt a surge of hope, a sense of vindication. Ethan's carefully constructed house of cards was about to come crashing down. The next step was to find a way to present this evidence to the authorities, to expose Ethan and his lawyer without alerting them to our plan. We knew that they would stop at nothing to protect themselves, and we had to be prepared for anything. Sarah suggested contacting a forensic accountant, someone who could analyze the financial records and uncover the fraudulent transactions that Ethan had used to bankrupt me. "We need someone who is independent, trustworthy, and discreet," she said. "Someone who won't be intimidated by Ethan's power." After weeks of searching, we found a forensic accountant named David Miller, who had a reputation for integrity and expertise. David agreed to take on the case, and we provided him with all the financial records we had gathered, along with the recordings of Ethan's incriminating statements. He worked tirelessly, poring over the documents, tracing the money trail, and uncovering the intricate web of deceit that Ethan had woven. After several weeks of investigation, David presented us with his findings. He had uncovered a series of shell corporations, offshore accounts,
and fraudulent transactions that clearly demonstrated Ethan's culpability in the bankruptcy case. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable. We now had everything we needed to expose Ethan's lies and reclaim my life. The exact day they tried to end me, I exposed the truth.
The pieces were falling into place with an almost unbelievable precision. Ethan's arrogance, his lawyer's greed, and our relentless pursuit of the truth had created a perfect storm. We knew we had to act quickly before they caught wind of our investigation and had a chance to cover their tracks. Sarah, David, and I huddled in her small apartment, poring over the evidence, strategizing our next move. "We can't go directly to the authorities," Sarah said. "Ethan has too many connections, too much influence. He'll find a way to bury the evidence, discredit us, or worse." David nodded in agreement. "We need to find a way to expose him publicly, to force the authorities to take action." That's when I had an idea. I had been quietly cultivating relationships with several journalists, reporters who had a reputation for integrity and a willingness to take on powerful interests. I had shared snippets of my story with them, hinting at the corruption and deceit that I had uncovered, piquing their curiosity without revealing too much. Now was the time to bring them into the fold. "I know a few reporters who might be interested in this story," I said. "If we can provide them with enough evidence, they might be willing to go public." Sarah and David exchanged glances, a flicker of hope in their eyes. "It's risky," Sarah said, "but it might be our only chance." I contacted the reporters one by one, carefully gauging their interest, assessing their trustworthiness. I sent them anonymous packages containing key pieces of evidence, copies of the financial records, transcripts of Ethan's incriminating statements, and Emily Carter's affidavit detailing the lawyer's unethical conduct. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The reporters were eager to pursue the story, sensing a major scandal that could make their careers. They began digging into Ethan's background, interviewing former employees, business associates, and anyone who might have information about his activities. The pressure was mounting, the noose tightening around Ethan's neck. He had no idea what was coming, completely unaware that his carefully constructed world was about to crumble. I watched from the shadows, a ghost in his machine, pulling the strings, orchestrating his downfall. It was a dangerous game, but I was willing to risk everything to see justice served. I knew that Ethan would retaliate if he discovered my involvement, but I was prepared for anything. I had nothing left to lose. He thought he was untouchable. That was his fatal flaw. The day the first article was published, I felt a surge of adrenaline, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The headline screamed accusations of fraud, corruption, and deceit, detailing Ethan's alleged scheme to bankrupt my company and ruin my life. The article included excerpts from the financial records, transcripts of his incriminating statements, and Emily Carter's shocking allegations against his lawyer. The response was immediate and explosive. The article went viral, spreading like wildfire across social media, igniting a firestorm of outrage and condemnation. Ethan's reputation, once pristine and unblemished, was now tarnished beyond repair. His business partners began to distance themselves, his investors panicked, and his carefully constructed empire began to crumble before his very eyes. The authorities were forced to take notice, launching investigations into Ethan's financial dealings and the lawyer's unethical conduct. He was now the target of multiple investigations, facing the prospect of criminal charges, financial ruin, and social isolation. I watched it all unfold with a sense of grim satisfaction, knowing that I had played a key role in his downfall. But I also knew that the battle was far from over. Ethan was a powerful and ruthless man, and he would not go down without a fight. Within hours of the article's publication, my phone rang. It was Ethan. His voice was low, menacing, barely a whisper. "Olivia," he said, "we need to talk." I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest, but I knew I couldn't back down now. "All right, Ethan," I said, my voice steady. "Where and when?" He named a secluded location, a remote cabin in the mountains, far from the prying eyes of the media and the authorities. I knew it was a trap, but I also knew that I had to go. This was my chance to confront him, to expose his lies, and to reclaim my life. I alerted Sarah and David, telling them where I was going and what I planned to do. They urged me not to go alone, but I refused. This was my battle, and I had to face it on my own. I armed myself with a hidden recording device, a small camera concealed in my purse, and a determination to see justice served, no matter the cost.
As I drove to the cabin, the sun setting behind the mountain peaks, casting long shadows across the winding road, I felt a sense of foreboding, a premonition of danger. I knew that Ethan was desperate, that he was capable of anything, but I also knew that I was stronger than ever before, fueled by the burning desire for revenge and the unwavering belief in justice. The exact day they tried to end me.
The air hung heavy with unspoken threats as I pulled up to the cabin. It was exactly as Ethan had described, isolated, surrounded by towering pines, the kind of place secrets went to be buried. I cut the engine, the silence amplifying the frantic beat of my heart. He was waiting on the porch, silhouetted against the dim light spilling from the windows. Even from a distance, I could feel the intensity radiating off him. I took a deep breath, steeled my resolve, and stepped out of the car. "Olivia," he said, his voice deceptively calm, "I was hoping you'd come." I didn't respond, just walked towards him, my hand gripping the strap of my purse, my fingers tracing the outline of the hidden camera. He gestured towards the door. "Let's talk inside. It's cold out here." I followed him into the cabin, the air inside thick with the smell of wood smoke and desperation. He turned to face me, his eyes narrowed, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Why, Olivia? Why did you do this?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "You know why, Ethan. You took everything from me. You left me with nothing." He scoffed. "You think I wanted this? You forced my hand. You were getting in my way." "I was," I said, my voice rising, "and I wasn't going to let you get away with it." He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You have no idea what you've done, Olivia. You've made a powerful enemy." I laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You're not powerful, Ethan. You're just a bully with a lot of money, and now everyone knows it." He lunged at me, grabbing my arm, his grip like a vice. "You think this is over? It's just beginning." I wrenched my arm free, my adrenaline surging. "It's over for you, Ethan. I have everything on tape. Every lie, every scheme, every illegal transaction. It's all there, and it's all going to the authorities." His face contorted with rage. He knew I was telling the truth. He knew he was cornered. He took another step towards me, his eyes blazing. "I should have ended you a long time ago," he snarled. That's when I pressed play on the recording device in my purse. His own words, his own confessions, his own damning statements filled the room, echoing his guilt for all to hear. The look on his face was priceless, a mixture of disbelief, horror, and utter defeat. He stumbled backward, as if struck by a physical blow, his carefully constructed facade crumbling before my eyes.
Suddenly, we heard sirens in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a desperate plea. "Please, Olivia," he begged, "don't do this. I'll give you anything you want." I shook my head, my heart filled with a cold satisfaction. "It's too late for that, Ethan. You should have thought about that before you tried to ruin my life." The police burst through the door, guns drawn, shouting commands. Ethan didn't resist. He knew he was caught. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked back at me, his eyes filled with hatred and despair. I just smiled. The fallout was swift and devastating. Ethan was charged with multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. His lawyer, exposed for his unethical conduct, was disbarred and faced criminal charges of his own. Ethan's company, once a symbol of his success, was seized by the authorities and its assets liquidated. He lost everything: his wealth, his reputation, his freedom. He became a pariah, shunned by his former friends and colleagues, his name synonymous with deceit and corruption. I watched it all unfold from a distance, a sense of quiet satisfaction washing over me. I had reclaimed my life, my reputation, and my future. My company was restored to me, and I was able to rebuild it, stronger and more resilient than ever before. I had proven that even the most powerful and ruthless individuals could be brought to justice, that the truth could prevail, even against the greatest odds. The stories of those he had hurt started surfacing, victims coming forward, empowered by my actions. They found closure, and I found a strange sense of peace. Revenge isn't sweet. It's necessary. It's a course correction, a balancing of scales, a way to ensure that the darkness doesn't win. They lost everything. I just smiled. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more justice.